The night was unusually quiet in the small mountain town of Haven Creek. The usual chirping of crickets was gone, replaced by an eerie stillness that made the air feel heavy. Above the darkened hills, a faint shimmer rippled in the sky, like heat waves rising from a hot road. It was no natural phenomenon. This was something far more deliberate. Commander Lyra Taval of the Crithian Alliance stood on the edge of a clearing, her silver ship hidden beneath a cloak of invisibility. She was tall and slender, her violet-hued skin shimmering faintly under the moonlight. Her uniform, a sleek black suit embedded with glowing lines of Crithian technology, hugged her figure. In her hand, she held a wrist-mounted scanner, its soft hum cutting through the silence. Her sharp green eyes scanned the landscape as the scanner pinpointed her target's location, a human named Dr. Nathan Carter. According to Crithian intelligence, he had stolen highly classified alien technology during a covert operation on Earth. Lyra's mission was clear: arrest the man and return him to the Crithian capital for trial. Simple mission, she muttered to herself. Find the human, retrieve the tech, leave. But as she approached the small, hidden lab tucked away in the forest, a strange feeling stirred in her chest. She ignored it. Emotions were distractions, and distractions got you killed. The lab was a modest structure made of reinforced steel, camouflaged by the surrounding trees. Lyra's scanner confirmed that Nathan Carter was inside. She raised her other arm, activating a small energy shield as she stepped toward the entrance. With a single press of a button on her wrist, the door slid open. Inside, the lab was a chaotic mess of wires, machinery, and glowing blue crystals. Crithian technology, unmistakably. Nathan Carter, the man she had been hunting, stood at a workbench, calmly adjusting a device that emitted a faint hum. He was taller than she had expected, with a rugged appearance, unkempt dark hair, a stubbled jawline, and sharp blue eyes that seemed to notice everything. "You must be Commander Lyra Taval," he said without looking up. His voice was steady, even amused. Lyra narrowed her eyes. How did he know her name? "Dr. Nathan Carter, you are under arrest for the theft of Crithian property and unauthorized experimentation." Nathan finally turned to face her, a faint smile playing on his lips. Theft, experimentation. Those are big words for someone who doesn't understand what I'm doing. "You're coming with me," Lyra said, stepping forward. Nathan held up a hand, stopping her in her tracks. "Before you drag me off to whatever galactic court you serve, maybe you should take a moment to ask yourself why someone would risk everything to study your technology." Lyra hesitated for just a second, but it was enough for Nathan to press a hidden switch. The lights in the lab flickered, and an energy barrier sprang up between them. "Good luck catching me," Nathan said with a smirk, disappearing through a hatch in the floor. For the first time in her career, Lyra felt a flicker of doubt. This mission was going to be anything but simple. Commander Lyra Taval didn't hesitate. The moment Nathan disappeared through the hatch, her scanner lit up, tracking his movement underground. She activated her suit's thermal vision, the world around her shifting to shades of red and blue. She could see him, a glowing figure, sprinting through an underground passage. "Impressive," she muttered, switching to pursuit mode. Her boots activated their magnetic grip, allowing her to descend the hatch's metal ladder at an inhuman speed. The tunnel was dimly lit, with exposed pipes and cables lining the walls. Nathan was fast, but Lyra was faster. Her Crithian training kicked in, her steps light and precise, closing the gap with every second. Nathan glanced over his shoulder and smirked. "You're persistent. I'll give you that." "Stop running, Carter. You can't escape," Lyra called out, her voice steady. "I'm not running. I'm just buying time," he replied, reaching a panel on the wall. His fingers danced over a keypad, and suddenly, the tunnel behind him began to collapse. Lyra cursed under her breath and leaped forward, narrowly avoiding a falling section of the ceiling. Dust and debris clouded the air, but her suit's filters kept her breathing steady. When the rumbling stopped, she saw that Nathan had put a solid wall of rubble between them. But Lyra wasn't deterred. She raised her wrist-mounted device, and with a soft whir, a plasma blade extended from it. In swift, precise motions, she began cutting through the debris. "You can't hide forever," she called, her voice echoing through the tunnel. On the other side, Nathan leaned against a console, catching his breath. "I'm not hiding, Commander. I'm making a point." With a flick of a switch, he activated a hologram that lit up the space around him. It displayed images of devastated planets, charred landscapes, poisoned oceans, and dead forests. Lyra finally broke through the rubble, stepping into the room just as the images shifted to a projection of Earth. It was scared but still alive, its green and blue hues fighting against the encroaching gray of pollution. "What is this?" Lyra demanded, her plasma blade still glowing. Nathan turned to face her, his expression serious. "This is why I stole your technology. Your people have the means to heal planets, to reverse ecological disasters. Yet you hoard it, letting worlds die while you cling to your rules." Lyra lowered her blade slightly but didn't deactivate it. "You broke interstellar law. That's not how diplomacy works. And what's your law worth when billions are dying?" Nathan shot back, stepping closer. His voice was calm but full of conviction. "I don't expect you to understand, but if you have even a shred of decency, you'll at least listen." For a moment, Lyra hesitated. She had been trained to follow orders without question, to see humans as primitive and reckless. But Nathan didn't look like a criminal. He looked like a man desperate to save his world. "You have 2 minutes," she said, crossing her arms. "Talk." Nathan took a deep breath, his gaze steady as he faced Commander Lyra Tival. He could see the tension in her stance, the way her glowing plasma blade hummed softly at her side. She wasn't someone to be trifled with, but he also knew he couldn't afford to back down. "The Crithian Alliance has the technology to heal entire ecosystems," Nathan began, gesturing to the hologram of Earth. "You've done it on your worlds, planets devastated by wars, industrial collapses, or natural disasters. Yet when Earth asked for help, your council refused. We were told we weren't ready. Do you know what that means, Commander? It means they let people die." Lyra's expression didn't change, but her silence told him she was listening. That was a start. "So, yes," Nathan continued, his voice rising, "I reverse-engineered your tech. I built a prototype that could stabilize Earth's atmosphere, cleanse our water, and repair our soils. But I didn't do it to make a weapon. I did it because, without it, my planet has maybe 50 years left. And that's being optimistic." Lyra tilted her head slightly, her emerald eyes narrowing. "And what happens when your species uses that same technology to advance their war machines? To conquer? Humans have a history of turning progress into destruction." Nathan smirked, though it didn't reach his eyes. "You think we're the only ones with that problem? I've read about the Crithian Wars, how your people nearly destroyed yourselves before you figured things out. Do you think humans are so different? We're just a little behind. That's all." Her jaw tightened, but she didn't argue. Instead, she took a step closer, her voice cold but controlled. "Even if I believed you, Nathan Carter, it doesn't change the fact that you violated interstellar law. My orders are to bring you in, and I intend to follow them." Nathan's confidence faltered for the first time. "If you take me back, the Council will bury my work. They'll destroy my research, and Earth will be left to die. Do you really want that on your conscience?" Lyra hesitated, a flicker of doubt crossing her features. But before she could respond, her wrist communicator beeped sharply. "Commander Tuval," a stern Crithian voice barked through the device. "You've been in contact with the target for too long. Proceed with the extraction immediately." Her lips pressed into a thin line. Duty warred with reason in her mind, but years of discipline won out. Without a word, she raised her plasma blade, its light casting sharp shadows on the walls. Nathan didn't wait. He lunged toward the console, attempting to grab something, anything, to defend himself. But Lyra was faster. With a fluid motion, she activated her stun field, a wave of energy immobilizing him before he could take another step. Nathan collapsed to the ground, groaning as the field's effects rendered him powerless. Lyra stepped closer, crouching to meet his gaze. "I don't have a choice," she said quietly, her voice almost apologetic. "You're coming with me." As Nathan's vision blurred, he managed one final whisper. "You always have a choice." Nathan's head throbbed as he slowly regained consciousness. He was lying on a cold metallic surface, his wrists bound by glowing energy cuffs. The hum of a ship's engines reverberated around him, and the faint scent of ozone filled the air. He opened his eyes to find himself in a small, sterile cell aboard what he assumed was Lyra's ship. A voice crackled through an intercom. "Awake already? Humans are more resilient than I expected." Nathan turned his head to see Lyra standing on the other side of a transparent energy barrier. Her arms were crossed, her expression as unreadable as ever. "Nice accommodations," Nathan said, his voice dry. "I guess a luxury suite was out of the question." "You're lucky you're still alive," Lyra replied coolly. "If it were up to the council, you'd already be on trial." Nathan smirked despite the situation. "And if it were up to me, I'd still be in my lab saving my planet." Lyra ignored the comment, turning to a nearby console. "We'll reach the Crithian capital in 3 days. You might want to use the time to think about how you're going to explain yourself to the council." Nathan's mind raced. He knew that if he was taken to the capital, it would all be over, his research destroyed, his work buried, and Earth left to its slow death. He had to find a way out, and fast. As Lyra moved to leave, an alarm blared throughout the ship, and red lights flashed across the walls. Lyra's communicator beeped urgently. "Commander Tuval," a robotic voice announced. "Unidentified ships approaching. Hostile intent detected." Lyra's expression hardened as she pulled up a holographic display. 3 pirate ships had appeared on the radar, their weapons locking onto her vessel. "Pirates," she muttered. "Of course." Nathan saw the opportunity. "Need a hand, Commander." Lyra shot him a glare. "I don't need your help." The ship shuddered as the first blast hit its shields. Lyra cursed under her breath and activated the ship's automated defenses. Turrets sprang to life, firing at the attacking ships, but the pirates were relentless. Nathan leaned forward. "Listen, you're down a crew member. Let me out. I'm an engineer. I can help you keep this ship running." Lyra hesitated, her mind racing. She didn't trust him, but the damage reports on her console made it clear she wouldn't last long on her own. Another hit rocked the ship, and she made her decision. "Don't make me regret this," she said, deactivating the energy barrier. Nathan stumbled out of the cell, his hands still cuffed. Lyra handed him a small device and pointed to the engine room. "Fix the stabilizers. If you try anything, I'll throw you out the airlock." Nathan grinned. "Fair enough." As he sprinted toward the engine room, Lyra turned back to the controls. She didn't know if she could trust him, but for now, they had a common enemy, and she needed all the help she could get. The ship shuddered violently as another blast from the pirate ship struck its hull. Sparks flew from the control panels in the cockpit, but Commander Lyra Taval's hands moved swiftly over the controls, rerouting power to the shields. She glanced at the radar. 2 pirate ships were circling her, while the third was trying to disable her engines. "Stabilizers at 60%, the ship's AI reported in a monotone voice. "Hull integrity compromised." Lyra's jaw tightened. "Come on, Carter. Prove you're as smart as you claim." In the engine room, Nathan Carter worked frantically. His cuffs made the task awkward, but he was too focused to care. The stabilizer coils were fried, and the cooling system was barely functional. He rummaged through a toolkit, his mind racing as he pieced together a solution. "Okay, Nathan," he muttered to himself. "Alien tech, human ingenuity. Let's see if this marriage works." He bypassed the damaged circuits and redirected power through a secondary conduit. As the stabilizers began to hum back to life, the lights in the engine room flickered and then stabilized. Stabilizers at 90%, the AI announced. Primary systems restored. Nathan grinned and wiped sweat from his brow. "You're welcome, Commander." Back in the cockpit, Lyra allowed herself a small sigh of relief. The ship's movement steadied, and the shields held firm against the pirate barrage. She activated the ship's countermeasures, sending out a pulse that disrupted the pirates' targeting systems. The lead pirate ship veered off course, leaving a small window of opportunity. Lyra didn't waste it. She fired a concentrated plasma beam, disabling the ship's engines. The other two ships quickly retreated, their weapons going silent as they fled into the void. Pirates neutralized, the AI confirmed. Lyra leaned back in her seat, her breathing heavy. She activated the comms. "Carter, report." Nathan's voice crackled through the speakers. "Your stabilizers are as good as new. You're welcome." Lyra rolled her eyes, but a small smile tugged at her lips. "Don't get cocky. Return to the cockpit." A few minutes later, Nathan appeared, his cuffs still glowing around his wrists. He leaned against the doorframe, looking both exhausted and smug. "Admit it," he said. "You needed me." Lyra turned her chair to face him. "You were useful. That doesn't mean I trust you." Nathan chuckled, stepping closer. "Fair enough. But I think I've earned the right to explain myself." Lyra raised an eyebrow, but didn't interrupt as Nathan gestured toward a datapad on the console. "That," he said, "contains everything I've been working on, my research, my prototypes, and the data proving your council knew Earth was dying and chose to do nothing." Lyra's eyes widened slightly as she picked up the datapad. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because," Nathan said, his tone serious now, "I think you're different. I think you care. And if you see the truth, maybe you'll help me stop this madness." For a moment, Lyra said nothing, her gaze fixed on the datapad. Then, slowly, she looked up at him. "I'll read it," she said, "but don't think this changes anything." Nathan smiled. "It's a start." The Crithian capital came into view as the ship emerged from hyperspace. Nathan stood near the viewport, staring in awe at the sprawling, luminescent city floating above a blue-green planet. Towers of crystalline material glimmered under the light of twin suns, and ships of every shape and size buzzed like bees around a hive. "It's beautiful," Nathan murmured. Lyra, seated at the control console, didn't look up. Her focus remained on the flight path clearance being relayed to her. The Crithian homeworld is the heart of the Alliance. Advanced technology, peace, prosperity. Everything your species claims to want but can't seem to achieve. Nathan ignored the jab, his eyes still fixed on the city. "You think humanity doesn't deserve it, don't you?" Lyra finally glanced at him, her expression neutral. "Deserve has nothing to do with it. Survival is earned." Before Nathan could reply, the AI interrupted. "Docking procedures initiated. Arrival at Central Command in 10 minutes." Nathan stepped back from the viewport, the weight of his situation pressing down on him again. "So, what happens now?" "They drag me into a courtroom and throw me in a cell for the rest of my life." "That depends on the council," Lyra replied. "But if I were you, I wouldn't expect mercy." Nathan crossed his arms. "What about you? Do you ever question it? Following orders, even when you know they're wrong?" Lyra's jaw tightened, but she didn't respond. The ship docked at a massive station overlooking the capital city. Two Crithian guards, clad in shimmering armor, were already waiting as the ship's hatch opened. Nathan's cuffs glowed brighter as Lyra activated the restraint field, ensuring he couldn't escape. "Commander Tuval," one of the guards said, bowing slightly. "The council is waiting for the prisoner." Lyra nodded and motioned for Nathan to step forward. He hesitated for a moment, then walked past her, the guards flanking him on either side. As they moved through the station's gleaming corridors, Nathan couldn't help but notice the curious stares of Crithians they passed. Some hostile, others merely curious. They entered a grand chamber where the council awaited, seated on raised platforms that curved around the room. The counselors, all adorned in flowing robes, regarded Nathan with cold, calculating eyes. At the center sat the High Arbiter, an imposing figure with a presence that seemed to fill the room. Dr. Nathan Carter, the High Arbiter said, his deep voice echoing, "You stand accused of theft, unlawful experimentation, and endangering interstellar peace. What do you have to say for yourself?" Nathan took a deep breath, his eyes scanning the council. "I didn't steal your technology to hurt anyone. I did it to save my planet. You had the power to help us, but you turned your backs on Earth. If survival is earned, as your people believe, then let me prove we've earned it." The council murmured among themselves, their expressions unreadable. Lyra, standing silently to the side, watched the scene unfold. For the first time, doubt crept into her mind. Could Nathan's determination and honesty be enough to challenge the rigid, unyielding rules of the Alliance? The council chamber fell silent after Nathan's bold statement. The High Arbiter's gaze remained fixed on him, unflinching. Finally, the Arbiter raised a hand, silencing the murmurs among the other counselors. "Your claims of selflessness do not excuse your actions," the High Arbiter declared. "The Crithian Alliance has maintained peace for centuries by upholding its laws. No individual, no matter their intentions, is above them." Nathan opened his mouth to respond, but Lyra, standing silently at the edge of the room, caught a flicker of movement from the council's aides. Her sharp eyes noticed a datapad discreetly passed from one to another. Something about it didn't sit right. The High Arbiter continued, addressing the room. "Dr. Carter's technology will be confiscated, his research destroyed, and he will face sentencing tomorrow." Nathan's face darkened. "You're not even going to hear me out. You're willing to let an entire planet die because of your laws." The High Arbiter's expression didn't waver. "This matter is closed." As the guards moved to take Nathan away, Lyra's communicator buzzed softly, a private channel. She glanced at it, her eyes narrowing. A message had appeared, encrypted and anonymous. "Earth is not the first. The Council hides more than you know. Trust your instincts." Lyra hesitated, then quickly swiped the message away before anyone noticed. She followed the guards escorting Nathan back to his holding cell, her mind racing. Something was wrong. She could feel it. When they reached the cell, Nathan turned to her, his frustration boiling over. "You see it, don't you? This isn't justice. This is politics." Lyra didn't respond immediately. She activated the energy barrier, locking him inside, but her gaze lingered on him longer than it should have. "Stay here," she said quietly. "Don't do anything reckless." Nathan leaned against the barrier, watching her leave. "That's my specialty." Lyra made her way to the command center, where she accessed restricted council files using her clearance. As she searched, her suspicions grew. Reports of other planets in distress, similar to Earth, had been buried. Requests for assistance had been ignored. The Council's reasoning was always the same. Intervention could destabilize the balance of power. Her heart sank as she stumbled upon a confidential file marked Earth Protocol. Opening it, she discovered detailed plans to suppress humanity's development, ensuring they never reached a level that could rival the Alliance. "This isn't peacekeeping," she muttered. "This is control." Before she could process it further, an alarm blared throughout the station. "Security breach in detention sector," the AI announced. Lyra's eyes widened. She rushed back to Nathan's cell, only to find it empty. A trail of scorched marks on the floor suggested a forced exit. Her communicator buzzed again, and this time it wasn't encrypted. Nathan's voice came through, calm but determined. "I warned you, Lyra. If they won't listen, I'll make them." Lyra closed her eyes, her loyalty to the Council clashing with the truth she'd just uncovered. She knew what she had to do. Lyra sprinted through the gleaming corridors of the Crithian station, her boots echoing against the metallic floor. The alarms continued to blare, and the AI's voice repeated on loop. "Security breach in progress. Subject Carter has escaped. Her mind raced as she pieced things together. Nathan had warned her, and now he was out there, possibly armed and determined to expose the council. What complicated everything was the truth she'd uncovered. The council's betrayal, the suppression of entire species, and the lies spun in the name of peace. Lyra reached the nearest terminal and accessed the station's internal sensors. She tracked Nathan's movements. He wasn't fleeing. Instead, he was heading toward the main communications hub. "He's going to broadcast the truth," Lyra muttered. She tapped into the comm system. "Carter, stop this now. If you do this, you'll bring the entire Alliance down on you." Nathan's voice came through, crackling but steady. "That's the idea, Commander. Someone has to tell the galaxy what your council has been hiding." Before Lyra could respond, another voice interrupted. A Crithian officer. "Commander Tuval, you are ordered to apprehend the fugitive immediately. Use lethal force if necessary." Lyra clenched her fists. The council's response was clear. They wouldn't allow the truth to come out, no matter the cost. She took a deep breath, then made her decision. "Understood," she replied curtly, but instead of pursuing Nathan directly, she changed course. Nathan reached the communications hub, a sprawling room filled with glowing consoles and holographic displays. He quickly began working, hacking into the station's main systems. His heart pounded, but he knew what was at stake. The Council's lies had to be exposed, not just for Earth, but for every suppressed planet in the Alliance. As he worked, the doors slid open, and Lyra stepped inside, her plasma blade glowing faintly. Nathan tensed. "I'm guessing this isn't a social visit." Lyra didn't raise her weapon. Instead, she stepped closer, her expression unreadable. "You're not going to make it out of here alive if you go through with this." "I know," Nathan said without hesitation. "But if it means Earth has a chance, it's worth it." Lyra sighed and deactivated her blade. "You're a fool, Carter, but a brave one." Nathan blinked, surprised. "Does that mean you're not here to stop me?" "Not exactly," Lyra replied, pulling out a small device from her pocket. She tossed it to him. "Encrypted clearance. It'll override the Council's lockdown. Use it before I change my mind." Nathan stared at her, stunned. "Why are you helping me?" "Because you're right," Lyra admitted. "The Council is hiding too much. And maybe, just maybe, you're the only one crazy enough to change things." Nathan smiled, his fingers flying over the console. Within seconds, the room was filled with holograms displaying everything: Earth's crisis, the suppressed planets, and the Council's secret orders. "It's done," Nathan said. "The galaxy knows." But as alarms intensified and footsteps echoed in the hallway, Lyra and Nathan both knew their fight was far from over. The holographic images of suppressed planets and the Council's secret protocols flickered in the air for a moment before broadcasting across the galaxy. Nathan leaned back from the console, his breath heavy, but his determination unwavering. He glanced at Lyra, who stood beside him, her jaw set as she listened to the distant sound of guards closing in. "We just declared war on the Council," Nathan said, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. Lyra's eyes narrowed. "No, we declared war on corruption. There's a difference." The doors to the communication hub slid open, and a squad of heavily armed Crithian guards stormed in. Their leader barked an order. "Commander Tuval, step away from the fugitive and stand down. This is your last warning." Lyra didn't move. Instead, she positioned herself between Nathan and the guards, her plasma blade igniting with a sharp hiss. "I'm not standing down," she said, her voice cold and unwavering. "The Council has betrayed everything the Alliance stands for. I won't be part of it." The guards hesitated, their weapons raised but their resolve faltering. Lyra's reputation as a Crithian commander was legendary, and they knew she wasn't one to be underestimated. "Last chance, Commander," the leader said, though his tone lacked conviction. Lyra's response was immediate. She lunged forward, her blade slicing through the air with precision, disarming the leader in one swift motion. The other guards hesitated, unsure whether to fight or retreat. Nathan, watching from the console, couldn't help but grin. "Remind me never to get on your bad side." "Focus, Carter," Lyra snapped, blocking a blast from one of the guards. "We need to get out of here." Nathan nodded and activated the next phase of his plan. Using the Council's own systems, he triggered an emergency override, locking down key sections of the station to slow the reinforcements. "Done," he said, running to Lyra's side. "But we're going to have company real soon." Lyra nodded, her mind racing. "Follow me. There's an escape route near the docking bay." The two of them moved swiftly through the station, dodging patrols and avoiding the reinforced areas. Along the way, they encountered more guards, but Lyra's skill and Nathan's quick thinking kept them alive. He even managed to jury-rig a few traps using the station's maintenance panels, slowing their pursuers. Finally, they reached the docking bay, where Lyra's ship awaited them. The alarms were deafening now, and the sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the corridors. As they boarded the ship, Nathan looked back at the station, his expression a mix of triumph and exhaustion. "Do you think it'll work?" The broadcast. Lyra powered up the engines, her gaze steady. "It already has. People will see the truth. And when they do, the Council won't stand a chance." The ship lifted off, darting into the void of space. Behind them, the Crithian capital loomed, its once imposing presence now overshadowed by the seeds of rebellion. But their fight wasn't over. It had only just begun. Lyra's ship sailed through the vast darkness of space, the Crithian capital shrinking behind them. The alarms and chaos were gone, replaced by a tense silence. Nathan leaned against the co-pilot's chair, his eyes scanning the starry void. "So," he said after a long pause, "we're fugitives now, officially." Lyra smirked faintly but didn't take her eyes off the controls. "You were already a fugitive. I'm just catching up." Nathan chuckled, though his expression turned serious as he stared out at the stars. "Do you think it's enough? The broadcast, I mean. Will it change anything?" Lyra's fingers tightened on the controls. "It's not just the broadcast. The people of the Alliance have seen the truth, but change doesn't happen overnight. There will be resistance, but rebellions often start with a single spark. And you, Nathan Carter, just lit a bonfire." Nathan leaned back, his arms crossed. "A bonfire is good, but what happens when the Council tries to put it out?" Lyra glanced at him, her expression softening. "Then we fight. Not alone. There are others who'll join us, those who've suffered under the Council's lies. The galaxy is bigger than they think, and the truth is a powerful weapon." Nathan nodded, feeling a flicker of hope. For the first time in years, it felt like Earth had a real chance. The ship's comm system beeped, interrupting the moment. Lyra activated it, and a holographic display lit up with the image of a Crithian man with a stern face. He wore the insignia of the Crithian Resistance, a group Lyra had only heard whispers about during her years of service. "Commander Tuval," the man said, his voice steady. "Or should I say, ex-commander. We've been monitoring your actions. That broadcast, it's caused quite a stir." Lyra straightened, her expression cautious. "Who are you?" The man smiled faintly. "An ally. You've just done what we've been trying to do for decades, expose the Council's corruption. The people are listening now, and the resistance is ready to act. But we'll need your help." Nathan stepped forward, his interest piqued. "What kind of help?" "The Council will come after you with everything they have," the man said. "We can provide protection, resources, and allies. But we need your technology, Dr. Carter. If your planet healing device is as powerful as you claim, it could change everything, not just for Earth, but for dozens of worlds." Nathan exchanged a glance with Lyra. She gave a small nod, her trust in him clear. "I'll help," Nathan said firmly. "But only if Earth gets the support it needs. My people come first." "Agreed," the man said. "Transmit your coordinates, and we'll rendezvous." The comm ended, and Lyra set the course. As the ship surged into hyperspace, Nathan looked at her, a grateful smile on his face. "I didn't think you'd stick around for this." Lyra smirked. "You're impossible to get rid of. Besides, someone has to make sure you don't blow up the galaxy." Nathan laughed, the weight of the past weeks lifting slightly. Together, they were more than fugitives. They were the beginning of something greater. A rebellion, a chance for redemption, a new hope for the galaxy.